Hello, welcome to another episode of Ahead of the Curve. I'm your host, Geoffrey Platt. I hope you guys, for those of you who are watching and living in the US, had a really good Thanksgiving. I'd like to welcome my guest, Ray Eddy, on the show with me today. Ray, welcome to the show.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, Ray, could you give us a little bit of a background of who you are, where you're from, and kind of what you've done and what you're doing now?
Sure. I'd be happy to. Like Jeff said, my name is Ray Eddy. The part about my background that's relevant for today anyway, is I did have a career for a while, about a good 10 or 15 years as a professional stuntman. And I did that in theme parks primarily, a few little things outside of theme parks, but that's kind of why I'm here. I did a couple of little commercials and independent films. I was not like a big time Hollywood stuntman, but I had this experience.
You were huge.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, no one will ever check this. So I did that for a while, and then worked in management at the theme parks as well. And along with that, did my own production company. Have done a little bit of work. I've made a feature film and that kind of thing. So I've really enjoyed a wonderful career as an actor and a stuntman and a producer, director, writer, that kind of thing. And I've just really enjoyed that entire aspect of the creative career. And now I have actually moved on to a part of my career where I'm teaching about that. I actually teach in the entertainment management program at Rosen College at University of Central Florida here in Orlando. And I teach my students about how to
you've suckered me into speaking a few times to your students.
Almost every semester, honestly, since I've been there. So at least once a semester, Jeff comes in and talks about the technology. And my students just, honestly, I'm not making this up because I'm on your show. But my students consistently say that you are their favorite guest speaker, like even more than me as their teacher, right? They like you more than me because you tell them cool stories and show awesome videos of technology so that you've done and the bands and groups that you've worked with. And here's some cool, and they just go out of their minds. So anyway, but I teach that stuff now, and I do some stuff on the side as a performer and director, producer as well. But that's kind of where I am. So
awesome. Just wanted to say hi to Christy and hi to Priscilla. Happy holidays to you as well.
Nice to have you.
Yeah, hope you guys had a good one. And I know that we had a pretty chillaxed one here in Florida. COVID's basically kind of ransacked all of the holidays, taking everything over. So it's been kind of quiet, but, good nonetheless. So Ray, what have been some of the highlights, of your career? I know that you played Indiana Jones, which is a pretty stellar role to have.
Yeah.
And what were kind of some of the highlights that you had in that role, and what were some of the challenges, let's just say, that you had as a stuntman, working your way, like getting the role of a stuntman in the shows has got to be quite challenging, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it sure is. It's definitely not a role that is right for everybody. So and
what are you talking about? I'm ready to go.
Come on, yeah, you're up. I'll sign you up tomorrow. It's an interesting career because many people don't want to be obviously be a stunt person anyway. It's kind of an unusual, dangerous thing to do. So that makes it something that not everyone wants to get into. But I sort of always had a draw to it as a child. I thought it seemed fascinating and interesting to be able to pretend to fight people or to jump off of things from a high distance and land just for fun and make that your job. So once I discovered the ability to do that, after I had gone to, honestly, I did undergraduate and grad school and a couple of careers before I said, let me try this crazy stuntman thing. And then I didn't mean to bury the lead, but Jeff is right. The first big role I had was playing Indiana Jones in the Indiana Jones stunt show at Walt Disney World. So did that. The role itself, getting that role, the first part of getting a role where you're doubling someone else, stunt doubling someone else, like you're playing as if you were someone else, is you have to resemble them somehow. You can't physically, right?
You can't not look at them.
Right, and you don't need to be a clone of Harrison Ford for that role because obviously I'm not. But you need to be around 5'10" ish, Caucasian, a physical build, that kind of thing. So if you don't have that, they just say, don't waste your time, don't come audition. Or if you show up anyway, they say, why are you here? Leave. So that cuts out some people rather than the audition starts. So like, you can go now. So I'd get past that part. And then there's, for a stunt show, that the audition requires usually a strength test, which is like pull-ups, and then some agility, like just some basic dive rolls and shoulder rolls. And then you might have a little fight sequence you learn with someone else and throw a couple punches and make sure you can have body control and experience. And then if you do well enough, then you deliver a couple of lines. They give you some lines to practice and deliver back to the camera. And if you have all that they're looking for, then they say, we'll let you know. And if you're lucky enough, they give you a call. So I actually auditioned probably 3 or 4 times before I got it. I didn't walk right into it. So I got better every time. Eventually got the role and did that for from about 2001 to 2009, I guess. And then I switched over to a different show as a stunt manager at Disney World in the Lights, Motors, Action stunt show with the cars and motorcycles and things.
Oh, yeah, that must have been really cool.
It was a lot of fun. That was more calling the action. I wasn't in the cars. Eventually, I got to do an acting role in that where I jumped off top of a building, which was a lot of fun. But it was kind of a mix of the playing the manager there and playing the character there. And that kind of led to a lot of other things. That whole process led to the ability to meet people in the industry and learn about how filmmaking worked and all the nuances that go into that. And that led to my work as a director and producer and small projects like that. So that's kind of the whole little more detail into where I came from. So I hope that answers your question.
Richard says he has a friend in a car for LMA.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I wonder who that was. If you give me the name, I might know the person. I'm not sure if you want to do that or not live, but I'd be happy to see if I knew them. I was there for the last about 5 years of that show. So from about 2000, about when I left, from 2009 to 2000, I guess it ended in, let's see, what was it? 2016 is when that show closed. So I was there till it. I was actually in the last show as a performer, as an actor. So that was kind of fun to close the show out. So, although it was sad.
A sad day when it also closed out. So yeah, Richard said Dave, is it Tomasi?
Oh, Dave Tomasi. Yeah, Tomasi, sure. Very, very talented stunt performer and driver as well. Both things. Dave Tomasi has done a lot of work in TV as well. He's gotten some stunt roles and things. He also stunt performs at Universal Studios. He's a very active, talented, prolific stunt guy. So yeah, Dave Tomasi, good guy.
Such a small world, you never know again who's going to know who in this, especially in this industry. It's so small and so tightly knit.
Yeah, true. Yep.
So what, coming like a lot of the stuff, the conversations, of course, that we have on the show really kind of revolve around a lot of technical elements. We talk about a lot of technology. We talk about a lot of, different technical elements about production. Mm-hmm. What have been some of the challenges in working as a stuntman, with the technology or with the designers and working out different ways of stunt coordination, I guess, from a technical perspective?
Sure. That's I think a lot more relevant to what your audience is probably interested in learning about is how to deal with people like me, right, in a show. So
I'm really interested in just becoming a stuntman.
Oh yeah, well, hey, I'll train you.
Susie will love it.
Oh yes.
Hey, I have my tie today.
Significant others don't really enjoy the people who do that stuff. I would never tell like my mother that I was about to go do a dangerous stunt that day. I would know after it was over that I survived a stunt, and she'd say, "Thanks for not telling me before," because she would have worried. So anyway, but to your question about working with us in the industry, it's obviously very different than if you're working with digital projection and screens and technical pyrotechnics and things, and those are all the technical sides. But once you have people involved, it changes everything. And most of the time, when it's a speaker or a presenter or an actor, then they have the safe area where they stand. There's not going to be any pyro fallout, and it's very simple. Just keep them away from all the dangerous stuff. My job is to get in the middle of the dangerous stuff. So what that leads to then is, I'll give you an example of one. I did a convention performance in one of the Disney resorts one time where I was dressed, covered head to toe, couldn't see my face. And I had to just kind of run around and dodge explosions. Basically, it was indoors, so it was small pyrotechnic, gerbs and flares and things like that going up to, they're not going to catch the building on fire, but it's also the kind of thing you don't normally have someone within 6 feet of or 15 feet of, depending on what the position is. And I had to run it right next to it, and it would go off. So the idea is, in all the testing, you run all your testing and make sure that if somebody were there, would it hit them? What's the safest point they can get to without becoming in a dangerous area? And there'd always be a mark on the floor right there, usually like a little X in tape. They put on the floor, and you just stop. Make sure you stop there. If you go past that, you can catch a flare in your face. And that's the danger of being a stuntman. And the fact that you're willing to take that risk if I lose my balance and trip and fall face first into this thing, it could really cause some serious damage. Now, the technical responsibility on that is someone's watching me. They're not just kind of counting down from 10 and hitting the flare no matter what happens. They're watching to see if right. If I went the wrong direction, or I made a mistake, or I tripped and fell, they don't set it up and blow me up, right? So there are different layers of protection with that as well. But my job is I'm willing to take the risk to get close to it, but I need to make sure I hit my mark. So that's the biggest part of it. And then on top of that is what else is thinking about what else could possibly go wrong. That's really the stunt performer or a stunt coordinator's main job is how can we anticipate the problems that could happen and do our best to prevent them from happening. So another example from that same one would be if we're on carpet, what if I slip on the carpet? So can we put down some non-skid or at least some non-skid near where I stop so I can stop better? Those kinds of things allow for a greater sense of safety and security in the performer without diminishing the performance itself. As long as you can't see that there's, like you can't see my mark on the floor, you can't see the non-skid. As long as I can do my job and not have my performance be distracted by the safety technology you have around me, then it serves the purpose of telling the story, which is the danger, and also keeping the performer as safe as you possibly can.
Yeah, I was going to say that's got to be quite a challenge too, because I guess you're really doing a lot of risk assessment, right, with the team. And I'm sure that when it comes down to even design perspectives, because I personally never designed a show where there's been a lot of stunts or even a stuntman involved.
We should change that.
It's not typical.
Yeah,
we've always designed a lot of shows with talent such as performers that are singers. Mm-hmm. And I mean, when you're starting off with a new act, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, that you're basically educating them as to what they can and cannot do. And some of them are a little more rebellious than others, or naive than others, or whatever. And it takes time. You really know the really good, the professionals or the veterans when you can show up on a job site and you're working with the designers or you're working with director and you've got the show is in rehearsal and these people know exactly where to go. They know exactly how to react. They know exactly what to do. And I'm sure that there's a lot of similarities, of course, with that being in stunts and working as a stuntman.
Yeah, for sure. The only difference is how much we're involved with the danger, right? If we're going to actually take an impact or just avoid it completely. But I'm sure you've had situations where you have performers who aren't professional stunt people who are doing things that are a bit out of the normal range.
They probably shouldn't do. I mean, hell, I'd even call half of our industry on the technical side stunt people.
Yeah,
climbing trussing and
the rigging.
Yeah. Extremely high, dangling off the sides of things that they probably shouldn't be dangling off of.
Right. Yeah, these are things that drive stunt coordinators crazy because so people might think that someone's a stunt person because they just love taking crazy risks and they don't feel any sense of there's no fear at all and everything is fine. I'll take any risk you want because I'm a stuntman, and that's not really the stunt person you want to work with, honestly. There are some who maybe feel that way, but the stunt coordinators, which is usually who they design the stunts, they might do it as well, perform it themselves, but they might be the ones who just know more about the safety aspects of it and have someone else go do the work. They don't want someone who is going to go out of bounds or cut it closer than they should or make a change on the fly because it looks so cool and it'll be really interesting, and that leads to a significant injury. Because number one, it's the injury or potential death of the performer, which is the thing you want to avoid at all costs. And secondly, even if they don't get hurt, it could mess everything up and make it look stupid. And you don't want to have a stunt performer slip and fall and tumble down and take down a row of lights and blow some things up and everyone's fine, but the show looks like a joke now. It's so you don't want someone to just make things up on the fly and make it look cool. Because I can admit that I can think of one example in particular at Indiana Jones where I thought, I'm going to make this look a little better this time. And I end up getting injured because I cut it closer than I should have. You duck underneath this axe thing. It's a stone axe. It's not sharp, but you just duck underneath it as you're going by. And I thought, I'm going to cut it really close. And sure enough, it clonked me in the head.
On the side of the head.
And I was bleeding from the scalp for the rest of that show. And it was coming down my face. Not a really good look in a Disney World theme park show to have your performer bleeding from the head, right? That's not family friendly. So that was a bad choice by me.
There were people in the audience going, "Wow, that's amazing!
It looked really real." Yeah, for sure. I ended up not telling anybody about it till the show was over. And I was chastised soundly for that, because bleeding from the head is a reason to get out of the show. You should probably go to the hospital. I was fine. I just had a cut, not even a concussion, just a couple of staples, and I'm back on my way.
Nothing to worry about.
Not a big deal, right? But I messed up because I tried to make it look better, and I did it wrong, and it could have knocked me out. It could have pinned me under the thing. It could have injured me, and it could have been really a big mess. I shouldn't have done that. So anyway, yeah, I miss all that stuff too. I'm telling you.
I was just gonna say, Priscilla, I definitely miss it. I miss hanging off trusses.
Yeah.
So I miss the adrenaline of it, you know.
Right. But that's back to your point of what is safe, what's acceptable risk. And if you have performers up there who are, dangling from a truss without a safety harness on, that's unnecessary risk. And sometimes you're like, oh, I don't have time for my harness. We're in a hurry. The show's about to start. Well, that's great until you fall and die, all right, or get injured, or don't get injured, but make the show look stupid, right? So top priority is safety. Second priority is show quality. And we just can't throw those things out the window because we don't have time for it or whatever. So that's what the stunt performer's job is. Make it, be willing to take the risk. If something goes terribly wrong, unintentionally wrong, then you can get hurt. And that's why stunt performers are willing to take that risk. But desiring unnecessary risk without any attention to the possibility for keeping it safe but looking cool is a whole different thing. And you don't want that. You want to maintain safety but make it look awesome.
Yeah, of course. It's kind of like working as a magician, right? You want to be able to have all your tricks, and you want to make sure that on the front they look really good, but you also want to be safe, and you want to make sure everything works the way it's supposed to. And smoking mirrors, my friend, there's no business like show business.
Exactly.
Yep. So Susanna, my wife, actually has posed a question. So does some of the interactive tracking help make sure the stunt people are out of harm's way before these dangerous pyrotechnics go off to add extra layers of safety? And I think that's definitely an interesting question. I'm not too. I mean, we've used motion capture and different types of technologies to be able to track things in space, and I'm not too sure how much it's actually related or fallen back into the stunt industry. But I mean, I guess the question really kind of falls more into your court, of course.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but both of us, we can talk to this, I think. But in terms of the tracking in place to keep you like on time and in the right position, and don't get there before the stunt happens, absolutely, that's a piece of it. A lot of times, and in theme park shows for sure, but even in regular shows, events and concerts and things, it's all tracked to the music. So at this downbeat, you hit this point and this pyrotechnic effect goes off or something. So as long as the performer knows that and pays attention, then you're fine. But there's a second layer of safety as well, which is whoever fires off that pyrotechnic. Now, I know this side more than I do, of course, but things they can be programmed, right? So at this point in the music, it's just going to go off no matter what.
Yeah, right? I mean, pyrotechnics these days, especially on bigger shows, are all timed on time code.
Right.
And so triggered off of time markers.
So there's not a human error involved that you could make a mistake and do the wrong timing. Sometimes with a live show or a stunt involved, often you'll have one more layer of protection in there, which is a live human person has to activate the one that will be in the dangerous area. So a stage manager would say, stand by pyro 3 or something like that. And that person will look and see if it's safe. The performer's not around them. They haven't tripped and fallen or something has gone wrong. And then they can trigger it to activate it so that it will fire at the right time. But if something goes wrong, they can deactivate it immediately. Normally by a dead man switch, which is probably a term that you
which I think Richard actually just posed right there. Isn't a dead man?
Oh yeah, there you go. Exactly right. So perfect. Someone anticipated my question. So yeah, as long as you're pushing that button down, it will go off. The second that you realize something has gone wrong and someone might get hurt, you just lift your hand. It's much easier than saying, "Oh, where's the cancel button? Which one is it?" And you miss it, and then now someone gets hurt. But just lift. That's easier to do than find a button. So you're right, dead man switch. And that's how we did basically all the stunts that we had in Lights, Motors, Action, where all the pyrotechnics there were all dead man switches for all the big dangerous ones. Indiana Jones, it's human activated and things too. So yeah, it's a really good system. That the automated stuff is great for the precision of it, But when you have the human element in there to maintain one more level of safety, then yeah, I'm glad you like the answer to that, Susie. Susie, I appreciate that, and I think that's kind of how it makes it a little bit less dangerous.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Changing gears a little bit, just kind of brainstorming ideas, of course. A lot of things these days are going virtual. Film production's going heavily virtual. Live events are going virtual. Kind of everything's kind of going virtual, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of it, especially on the film side, we're seeing a lot of this extended reality stuff coming out, and a lot of that was kind of stemmed off of Mandalorian's yep. production and processes. I think that really good injection into especially the film industry and broadcast industries. But where am I going with this? I am going towards virtual production with stunts and stunt coordination within virtual environments. Mm-hmm. And it would be actually really interesting to hear your thoughts on that. Because I think that also mitigates a lot of the risk elements that you might take on as a stuntman. And I don't know if that would take away from, the whole feeling of being physically active in a stunt area where you've got all the physical elements around you, mm-hmm. or how that kind of would correspond or correlate to you working in a kind of a semi-virtual environment.
Yeah, you're absolutely right that virtual environments can almost basically eliminate risk, because you're not really sitting on the edge of a cliff and you're not really on fire. It's all digital effects, right? So
you're digitally on fire.
Digitally on fire. So it comes to how good of an actor you are, really, right? So it's not even a stunt performer; it's an actor can act that out just as well as anybody. So I'll take it. Let me take a sidebar to your conversation and come back to it, which is there are some who theorize that because of the advancement of technology, stunt work might go away. Because why would you ever, for example, set someone on fire when you can just have digital fire? You don't need a stuntman anymore, just a stunt person anymore, because you can just do digital. Same with, why drive a crazy car crash or a car wreck when you can just pretend to have a digital CGI car, or et cetera. High falls off the top of a building. You don't need to just make a CG person. So
yeah, or take you and transform, just make you digital.
Yeah, make you digital. Right. So there's certainly an element of that. I'm not going to deny that absolutely exists. That it saves a lot of money to not roll 15 cars down a hill. You can just have a CG cars, and it's not inexpensive, but it's not blowing up 15 cars. But the same conversation was had when animation became a thing in entertainment decades ago. Actors were afraid they would never act again because cartoon characters can do anything. They'll never complain, right? You don't have to feed them. You have to pay them. You're paying the animators, but they'll take any risk. They'll deliver any line. They'll do it however you want to. They'll work 24 hours a day because they're not human. They're just animated characters. So no one will ever hire actors again because animation can do everything we do and make it easier. And that clearly has not happened because people desire a real tangible experience with a human being. And I think at least as long as the technology is what it is, there obviously will probably come a day when you can't tell the difference between CG and real. So far, you can kind of tell, and that little uncanny valley difference between the absolutely real thing and the we call a practical effect versus a digital effect. Mm-hmm. It's still tangible enough and recognizable enough that there is a real need to see the people in there. I think a real explosion looks cooler than a digital explosion right now. That's just my opinion. But more than that, if I want to see two people in a fight or someone falling down a set of stairs, or even just a comedy slip and fall, right? Anything like that, seeing a real person do it, and you can really tell it's a real person, is actually, I think, has a stronger emotional impact than a digital effect can so far. Again, someday the technology may become where you absolutely cannot tell the difference at all, but I still think there's a value in a practical effect of a real person doing a real thing. So I don't think stunt work is going to disappear. Although you're not going to have a person drop off top of a 50-story building anymore because you just don't need to. You have the camera pulled back.
Unless you're Tom Cruise, right?
Sure, he would probably do it, honestly. But he hasn't a lot of his own stuff. He's gotten injured doing it. Jackie Chan is most famous for the most injuries on any stunt because he gets, he's such a machine. But Tom Cruise, for sure, has done a lot of his own stuff and gotten hurt a lot. And it really is. I guess it's important to have that human connection. And as you can see, Chrissy's comment right there, Even if you are doing a digital recreation of a stunt, there's a person who does that through motion capture, like you said. So you need to have a physically able person to recreate that effect that can then be, CG'd into outer space or off of a building or into a gorilla from Planet of the Apes or something like that. So the physical skills need to exist somewhere. So that's one piece of it, which is probably a tangent to what you were really asking, which is much more about how we incorporate with the digital world. And I think you're just seeing more and more of that with motion capture and Mandalorian technologies, where you have video screens that look realistic enough to be real environments, and even all the monster movies, the Jurassic Parks and the King Kongs, where everyone's acting with a tennis ball at the end of a stick, but that's where the CG monster is going to be. It takes really good acting to do that.
Definitely very heavily done, especially in the gaming studios. I had the privilege to work in a gaming studio for a little while in LA, doing some conceptual work for making the environments that the actors would act in more realistic to the scenes, and using digital enhancements like projection mapping within the studios to be able to quickly lay out the scenes. Because it's incredible how much time it takes to even set up, to set up a single scene in a motion capture studio. Because they've literally got all these building blocks. It's almost like, the gyms when you were kids and you had the crash pads and the mats and all these like foam blocks and stuff. And they've got all these props that are built like that to build out, physically map out and stage the scenes in the mocap studios so that the actors have those physical elements there to interact with when they're shooting the mocap.
Yeah, and that's incredibly valuable to a performer to have, even if it's just a block or a tennis ball, something to interact with is rather than empty space. There's a really great YouTube video that you may have seen of Benedict Cumberbatch as he's doing the motion capture and the voice for Smaug, the dragon from The Hobbit.
Yeah.
It is brilliant, and he is such an actor, such an extraordinary actor, that he's crawling around the floor wearing a motion capture suit, and his facial expressions and his voice, and he's just inhabiting this character. Inhibiting. Yeah, he's not stopping, and he's in it, and he's playing the character so beautifully, and with such depth and emotion. It's fascinating to watch him in a space of nothing. It's just a flat floor with nothing around him, and you can still kind of envision, a dragon that's on a pile of gold chasing after a little hobbit. I mean, it's great what a powerful actor can do. But any assistance that you can provide to the stunt person, actor, motion capture performer to allow them to do their job more easily and more effectively is only going to make the situation better.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think that's been it's been a really interesting time, I think, throughout our lives, because everything is being digitally enhanced, and all these challenges are being posed and solutions are coming, some faster than others, but it's just really interesting to see the relation to our digital world to our physical world. A lot of things have been super fast tracked, of course, due to COVID, and a lot of the technologies used in, like for example, version 4.26 of Unreal Engine was released today with a huge feature list of enhancements that, to be honest with you, in a normal day, a normal time when we've been really busy, would have taken probably the better part of almost a year to be able to get out. And they're shooting this stuff out now within like 6-7 months.
Wow.
Because everything has just been so hyper focused and there's such a huge demand for it now, which COVID has caused, that it's really fast tracked the technology cycles. Even I would say, even for me working in the technology industries and working for a tech company, we're looking at building out technologies for the future, but it's not going to be in 6 months,
Yeah. No, I agree. I think the adaptation that's taken place within the entertainment industry, so this is maybe more coming from my teaching side than from my stuntman side, but the industry has had to innovate because it got decimated so rapidly, of course. Theme parks shut down for a while. Now they're back, but shows are not. It's they have characters and whatever else, but they don't have the shows back because they couldn't do that safely with COVID. So finding other ways to entertain the guests. concerts aren't really happening, but you can do virtual concerts, sporting events, smaller crowds. But if there were a way to start implementing, say the virtual reality experience of sitting in the front row of a concert or on the 50-yard line of a football game, and you can look around and see it as if you were really there. That's a technology that would allow the consumer to still have that entertainment experience without the risk. And that may lead to more of that in the future, just because it's not just the risk, it's just the convenience of it. So,
of course. I mean, you
do
can
it whenever.
sit in your pajamas or whatever inside of your living room with a headset on. And
yeah, right. Now, having said that, I still am loyal to the idea that the real human contact is valuable. So I don't feel like that would make a live event disappear, but it might just, you'll have the live event for those who want to go to the live event, and then the virtual event for those who want to participate that way instead. So well, I think it can add.
Yeah, sorry, Ray. I was just going to say that I would always prefer to see something physically.
Yeah.
There's that human connection and that human bond that we have that just, I think, is completely irreplaceable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No matter how far down the rabbit hole we go or how advanced we get in technology, even with full haptic technology and haptic suits where you can actually physically feel and even smell and be in the environment.
Right.
From a physical aspect, you're still in a digital environment. I don't know if our brains will ever be able to separate from the fact of living in a virtual environment to living in a physical environment.
That's true. And it's funny you should say all that. And I know this is not, you did not bring this up on purpose, because my research going into my dissertation for my PhD. But
okay, so maybe I might have thrown a little
perhaps little softball on that one. But that enters in the realm of the difference between immersion and what we call presence. So immersion, there are many different definitions, but to simplify, immersion is you feel like you're surrounded by a different environment. But presence is you feel like you're somewhere else. And that's more of a virtual reality thing. You feel like you are actually at the concert, at the football game, out in outer space, out in underwater, that kind of thing. Presence is definitely a different level of an experience than immersion tends to be. And the question is, which do people desire? And I see some comments here that are commenting on this very topic. And so I'm with you. I think there might be situations where, I would love to go to the beach in Fiji, but I can't afford it, either money or time. So I'll just go to my VR headset and imagine I'm there for a little while. That's kind of nice, but then I'm good. I would rather go to see a sporting event live. I mean, everyone remembers their first concert. If you've been to concerts before, everyone remembers their first one. And it's kind of life-changing of how impactful that is. I remember seeing the first time I ever saw a play where I was maybe in the third row. I was never a front row, but I was right in the very front. I saw Miss Saigon in Chicago in the third row. And it's almost a physical connection that you have with the actors up there. You can see their expressions. You can see the sweat. You can just feel their emotions so much. It's so much more raw when you're there, and especially when you're there close, than I think a digital recreation could ever allow it to be that emotionally connected. So I'm with you. I think the technology adds a ton, and the ability to reach a larger audience is a hugely valuable thing that I'm not going to dismiss. But I think that the desire for the live event, production, show, concert, sporting event I feel like it should always be there. I can't imagine that going away.
Yeah, I was even going to say, even comparing things like your first trip on an airplane, your first flight. I still remember my first flight like it was yesterday.
Right. Yeah. You feel your stomach kind of drop when you're like, oh, and either you love it or you're. Yeah, or you hate it and you never want to fly again. But I'm with you. Yeah, that's it. And honestly, for me, that's kind of how I got into stunts as well. I think first time I was probably riding my bike and I went over a jump, like the curb, and I hit in the air for a second. And I was like, oh, that was amazing. And now I'm like, I want to jump over everything all the time. Yeah. And I wasn't the kid who was always jumping off the roof and breaking his arm because I was crazy. Even then I was like, I don't want to take unnecessary risk, but risk is fun. It's adrenaline. And that got me into bungee jumping and skydiving and rock climbing and hang gliding. And those are all the fun things you can do as hobbies, but how can I make this a career? Stuntman. So anyway, I'm messing up my story, but you get the idea. But
I'm honestly going to ask if you're a little bit of an adrenaline junkie at heart, because I don't think a stuntman cannot be an adrenaline. I couldn't imagine a stunt person not being a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. Like, have you ever heard of a conservative stuntman?
No, not many nervous.
I'm not too sure about this one.
Yeah. I'm not comfortable with that. Not many stunt people say that phrase. And even if they're not, they don't say it. They just do it, you know. But it's that once again, that line between unnecessary risk and willing to overcome maybe your own nervousness or fear because that's your job. But usually it's people who enjoy they're comfortable with heights, or they're great on a motorcycle, or they just feel very comfortable around fire. Whatever, many stunt people have a certain skill. Now, this is a fire guy or a high fall woman or a driver, whatever that is. That's very cool. But and some try to be like a jack of all trades if you can. So like I would say I've done a lot of those things. I've not ridden a motorcycle professionally, but I've done different types of stunts. But for me, it's fights is my favorite thing. It's unarmed combat, sword fighting, quarterstaff, you name it. That's my favorite kind of stunt to do. And I've done tons of training in it, and I teach classes in it now. And I just love stage combat because it's not just the physicality of it, but there's also an emotional component. There's a storytelling aspect going on. Honestly, if I broke it down, there's a relationship between two people, and it's being resolved through violence. That's just where the relationship has come to at that point, is come to violence. So there's a real depth to that allows for a storytelling component of the stunt universe. So I've definitely gotten off track on that question by a large margin, and some fun comments about people who like adrenaline as well, which is very cool. So we'll throw it back to you. Sorry, Jeff.
No. I mean, that's what this whole thing is about, right? We're just having a conversation, and it doesn't really matter where it goes. Priscilla was mentioning adrenaline as her favorite vice. I think everybody, to some degree, if you're working in technology as a technologist, there's some sort of adrenaline kind of rush kind of going through us all. I mean, I have my limits. As Susie already knows, like, she is willing to jump out of an airplane. I'm not really willing to jump out of an airplane with a parachute. So just don't trust that.
It's not for everybody.
But I'll go hang gliding tomorrow, or
really.
Oh yeah, no problem.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
it's not the height that bothers you. It's the technology you're using.
Yeah, it's kind of the gear, right? Like I guess I look at it as that whole risk mitigation where I'm going, okay, well, a hang glider's already got the harness there. It's got a wing. It's got everything.
Okay, Suze,
you married me.
That's right.
But it's got everything is there, right? So I know that once I kind of launch off, it's all there. If something breaks or happens, then it breaks and happens. But I guess that my whole theory behind that is like a parachute. Well, it's got to come out. It's got to be deployed. It's got to work. Mm-hmm. So your first area or your first margin for failure is pulling the ripcord and the chute not coming out. Whereas I'm like, well, glider's already built, right? You're just going to strap in and go.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there you go. Okay,
I jump with you, honey.
But not hang glide. See, I've heard more often that. That's why what that last comment is, more people I've heard say they would rather skydive than hang glide, because hang glide, they feel like they could get blown off course or go upside down or go into a tree or a power line. But skydiving, you're just going to go down and kind of, you're just going for the ride. You just kind of, you can steer a little bit, but you're just kind of floating. But that's interesting. Yours is the opposite of that. But that's kind of same thing with rock climbing. Some people will rock climb in a gym, but not go out.
Oh yeah,
on the mountain.
I'm all in on the rock climbing side.
Right. So anyway, and I guess the last one is that I mentioned was, some good comments. Was bungee jumping, which that comes down to, will you jump with it around the harness around your torso or around your ankles? That's a whole different experience, right?
Yep, I've honestly done it from the ankles.
Yeah, me too, and it's pretty freaky, right?
It's really nutty. What your body goes through in those seconds as you plummet.
Yep,
is really crazy, and then all of a sudden, as the bungee contracts and you start slowing down for that second, and then that split second where you're actually still.
Yep.
Where you've reached the end of the bungee, it's completely, it's completely expanded, and you can literally, like, you're still for that one instant of a second.
That's right.
Before it rebounds.
That's right. And what's interesting? There's an aspect of that too. Of have you ever had the experience where whether doing that or something else, where you felt like time slowed down, like you feel like you're moving in slow motion, right? But I read an article about that recently. What that really is the adrenaline's kicking into your brain and sort of speeding up your thought processes so much faster that it feels like everything is going slowly. So like if someone throws a baseball at you and you turn and see it and you somehow are able to see yourself moving out of its way, it's because your brain is actually kind of firing more rapidly. So you feel like you're budging up, you just kind of go boink and you're back up again. But for that second, you feel like you're there for a few seconds because your brain's going, oh, and then you go back up again and it goes back to normal speed. But that chemical process in your brain is a fascinating way to understand how you feel like you're moving slower through time.
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh yeah.
I was reading some of the comments, Richard saying you went from the ankles when transferred to your chest after you pulled the strap.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that is interesting.
To get you out of it. Yeah, maybe so. So you're not hanging upside down. But
yeah, ours, the one I went on that was like super manual. It was back in the late 90s, and they literally had to pull you back up. After you had settled, they'd pull you back up. And then there was another one where there was a ground crew where they would just come and kind of get you, pick you up and bring you back.
Right. Mine was actually on a crane. It was in Chicago when I lived in Chicago. That 1 year, I did all these crazy things in Chicago, and it was on a crane. It went up 200 feet, and below us, the landing, the safety thing was a swimming pool, which from 200 feet is like this big. So like, I'm not going to hit that thing. So you jump down.
It's like that crash pad at the bottom when you land here, the X on the ground.
Right. Yeah, like that would make a difference for 200 feet, right? It doesn't matter. But yeah, after the bounce in the spring, they just lowered the crane, just lowered you down, and so that was my method. They didn't reel me back up again. But anyway, sorry, we're talking about bungee jumping now too. Sorry,
we've completely gone and derailed everything, but it's kind of fun. I mean, everybody seems to be enjoying it. So
yeah.
But I think it also definitely relates back into your stunt life. And the adrenaline, the adrenaline marks, and basically everywhere that we've kind of gone with the conversation so far.
Yeah, sure. It's all related.
It's all related. Jumping out of airplanes, whatever.
Adrenaline, stunts. Yeah. But I got to admit that the career is unusual, but it's really fun, and there's a lot of variety to it. And working with really good professionals who are willing to take care of you. I'll say that as a stunt performer, when I'm in a production where I can tell that they really want to make sure that, they want to make sure they get a good shot or get a good effect, but they're not willing to risk your life for it. And that's, in fact, they passed a law in the film industry that if a stunt person dies in a take of a shot, they're legally not allowed to use that shot in the film, which makes you think that the motivation for that is we don't care if they die or not, because if they die, we'll get a great shot. We can't use that footage, so we better not let them die. I mean, that's a really terrible way to think about that.
That's a horrible way of thinking about it.
But the fact is, I mean, that does a layer of protection about you. Like, at least they know they can't let you die, but they should care about you not getting maimed either. But the truth is, we as a performer are willing to push it to get a great performance. But we want to make sure that everyone else also knows that we're not just doing it. We're not going to flip a coin whether we live or die or not, or whether we break our neck or not. It's not like we don't care if we die or we get injured. We don't want to. We're just willing to take the risk because that's kind of what we do for a living. But knowing that the production team actually cares about the safety as well as the production is the best message you can send to a performer who's going to be in danger. Is, we appreciate the risk that you're taking. We're doing everything we can to keep it safe. We want to look amazing, but here are things we have in place to keep you safe, right? Here's a guardrail that the audience can't see, or here's a line you shouldn't cross, or if something goes wrong, Michelle over there on safety is going to dead man switch that thing and it'll turn off. So don't worry, you're not going to get hit in the face. So, I mean, just knowing those things, that they've taken those precautions is a really great environment in which to work, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's always part of the family in production, right? It's always the people that are there to support you, the people that are behind you all the way, looking out for the better interest of your life and keeping you physically safe and sound. But, also all the other elements of production, which I think is one of the biggest reasons why a lot of us do what we do. It's not, the draw is definitely there from all the cool crap and all the cool stuff that we're able to do. But in essence, for me, I got into it again from theater, and it was the tech side was super cool and super fun, but it was really the people. It was the people that I worked with. It was the people. It was the community of theater that really pulled me into the industry. And I noticed as I started working in all these different sectors and in these different industries, that followed along. Even in these companies, these tech companies that work specifically for the entertainment industry, I find are kind of radically different than a lot of other corporations because they're built around that. It's always a sense of community. So, I guess I've always spit out these random little bits of advice for the show. But I would say, the big one for me more than anything is work in a place where you're comfortable. Work in a place where, if you can have a group of friends and a group of coworkers that you can literally call family members, you're in the right place. It's just it's a wonderful experience to be in a place where you're accepted for who you are, what you do, and being part of that community and having the support around you. It's just an incredible thing.
I agree with that. If I can double down on that as well from the stunt side.
Double down.
Yeah. The family aspect of it is even heightened, I think, in some ways in this, because there are certainly times working with other stunt people who your life is in their hands. If you don't pull this truss before that semi truck comes whizzing by here, I'm going to get splattered across the highway. I mean, that's literally what you're doing. I'm going to stand here and wait for that semi truck to run at me. But if you don't push that button the right time and that person doesn't swerve out of the way, then, and that's the kind of thing that it's my life in your hands, or my safety is in your hands. And you have to, with the depth of your being, trust that person that they are doing everything they can to make sure you're as safe as you can be. So it's that if you're going to do a fire gag and someone's there, your fire safety, they have to know what signal do you send that means I'm actually burning now. I'm not acting like I'm on fire. I'm actually on fire. And you can't say, oh, I'm burning. Like, yeah, that's good acting. No, he's really on fire.
No, he's literally on fire.
Really. And how do you, so it usually, and the answer to that question, usually it means hit the ground. Once you hit the ground, that means, either the stunt is over or, put me out because something is burning. I got a hot spot or something. So but you have to know that you trust that team, that they're paying attention. They're just off camera and they're geared up and they have the fire extinguisher with their hand on the plunger and they're ready. The second you go down, they're in there. Otherwise, you're going to get a massive burn on your body. So, that's a level of trust and family that I think is stronger maybe in some other areas. So you might, if you work with a group of stunt people, you might find that they come in and they're very tight because this is their lives on the line. And the other side of that, then often it becomes kind of like a frat house. Because I'll be honest, stunt guys are more frat-like than green room in a theater-like. Having been in both,
really?
I'm going to have to say yes. If you walk into
love adrenaline and love taking lots of risk and
it's sports. It's sports and testosterone and physicality, and that's as opposed to acting where it's a different environment. I'm not saying either one's better or worse. I'm just saying you might find that their humor is a little bit crass. They might be a little bit blue. They might it's just common in the industry because it's just a mentality of we're out here doing our thing and F you if you don't like it. That's kind of where it might go. So but they are going to be a tight-knit group of people who love and trust each other. So that's just what you might encounter when you see them. I'm just giving you a heads up.
Well, it's good to know.
Yeah,
definitely good to know. I just wanted to, and we're kind of getting to the end of our time, Ray. So I just wanted to say hi to everybody that joined the show. Thank you guys so much for being so supportive and viewing. I just wanted to say hi to Tracy and Christy and Priscilla for watching, and of course Richard, who's been amazing, been kind of through and through, episode by episode, and everybody else has just been so involved in this. It's been a lot of fun. Hope you guys have been enjoying it as much as I have and we have. But yeah, it's been awesome. It's really, really been awesome. So Ray, I'd like to thank you for coming on this little conversation with me. And usually I totally forgot to do this pre-show, but we did bring up some contact information for you. So those who want to get in touch with Ray, You can reach him at Ray Eddy at pipeline.com.
Yep.
And then Ray, where would it? I mean, for me, I of course Google stalked you and stuff like I do with all my guests before they come on.
Yeah.
But for those of you who are also interested in getting to know Ray a little bit more, you can also check out his bio at the UCF website. So if you go on to the University of Central Florida's website, you can pull up his wonderful professor profile and get a little bit more info on Ray as well.
Yeah.
Ray, is there anything else that you'd like to share?
I had so much fun, Jeff. Just an absolute pleasure to be here. And thanks everybody for watching. I hope you had a good time. Absolutely.
So next week, folks, I've got my good friend Cameron Yuri on from Thrasos Media. So we're going to be talking again a lot about back into production and some of the technical elements. He came up with some really interesting streaming technologies to be able to use for a lot of corporate production and different production elements for, of course, streaming and working in virtual production. So that should be really cool. I also wanted to make you guys aware too that there's a digital festival that's happening tomorrow that is catered very heavily again into kind of live production and film and the video industry. It's called Framework. So that is taking place tomorrow. It's completely free. It's basically organized and put together by a good friend Laura Frank, and just an absolutely wonderful person. And it's a great conference to be able to join and check out. So that's happening tomorrow and Saturday as well. So that's going to be cool to watch. And of course, Christmas is right around the corner. We do have swag, which is www.aotc.1/swag. So that gets great stocking stuffers and stuff. Ooh. But otherwise, Ray, I'd like to thank you so much for being with me today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you, and it's always fun to have a friend as well.
Absolutely. So I feel the same. Great to be here.
Makes things so much more fun and engaging.
Yeah. Yeah. We had lots of stories we probably could have told that maybe good that we didn't. We get off track too much.
Yeah, some of them might not be rated PG.
But no, an absolute pleasure. I had a blast, and I love what you guys are doing here. It's fantastic. So keep it going.
Thank you so much, Ray. And then for all of you guys viewing, thank you again for sticking with us time and time again. And as I say every single week, stay ahead of the curve. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.